This is a video that some of you have been asking for. So, every year, or even multiple times a year, a movie will come out that everyone is convinced that I'm going to love, and they insist that I see it immediately to give my thoughts. Not because I'm some kind of authority on any specific type of cinema, really, but because there's just a curiosity of whether I'm going to go off the rails with it, I think. Will I have a reasonable take, or will just my scrambled up little brain project something inside that no one sees coming? And I think that's part of the fun of fandom, to be honest with you, that we're unpredictable. Sometimes things hit us and we love them, and you can't figure out why this person loves that film. And sometimes it's the reverse, obviously. This channel has not done a lot of reviews in the past. For the last couple of years, you've been steadfastly asking that I watch the one Halloween film that I've not seen, Halloween Ends. But no, I'm not actually going to do that today. Or ever. However, this year a film called Bring Her Back came out, which I did have a lot of interest in, but life kind of convened that I didn't get to the theater. Combine that with the fact that sometimes when I really like a artist's work, especially if they're a new artist, I hesitate to watch more from them because I don't want to really tarnish that image in my head of them as kind of the emerging artists of our time. It's very tough in today's landscape for a horror director or a genre director to really step out from the pack the way that I think in the 60s, 70s, and 80s a lot of horror directors were able to. And the reason for that, I believe, who knows, but I believe, is because there's just so much material out there and the audience has changed. We are much more jaded than we've ever been before. So as a result, it becomes sort of intimidating when you see someone put out something really strong. Will the next film be able to be this strong? Ari Aster is a great example of that. I'm a huge Hereditary fan, but I've been really loath to catch up on his catalog simply because I want to keep that level of artistry in my mind. And I know I'm probably wrong, and this is probably not a healthy way to look at life, but in a way I'd rather be surprised by something I had no expectation of and like it a lot than to be disappointed by a really good film from a director that I had hoped would be one of the all-time greats. Now, in the case of Ari Aster, I still have to catch up, so I don't know. He's still in good graces. But we're going to take a roll on Bring Her Back, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts. This channel hasn't done reviews in the past, really, not conventionally. There's a lot of autopsies, a lot of like under-the-hood views of how storytelling works, and I think that's what I'm particularly good at. The reason I have not really done reviews is because who cares what I think? If I'm asked, I will definitely give you my opinion. I'm not shy about that. But your opinion is every bit as valuable in general as mine. And my opinion is completely not valuable to you personally. It shouldn't be. Because just because I like something doesn't mean you'll like it. If it starts a wider discussion about what you like about the genre, or what I like about the genre, or what we think is holding it back, or something like that, then I think these conversations and reviews can be very positive. But I want to make it clear, no matter how I come out of this, and at this point, I'm recording this right before I go and press play. I don't know how this is going to end up, but no matter what that looks like, you're not wrong. If you were underwhelmed by it, you're right for you. If you loved it more than I'd end up loving it, you're still not wrong. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go push play on a movie. Okay, so I've just finished watching Danny and Michael Philippus Bring Her Back. These are only my initial impressions. Don't expect a full storytelling autopsy out of this. What we have here is simply my early notions. I'll need to let the film marinate in my brain for a while to really understand comprehensively what this movie means to me. But rest assured, there will be more viewings to help me sort that out. But that process will probably take years because this simply isn't the sort of thing you want to revisit too often. And that's a compliment, make no mistake. I won't bury the lead. Bring Her Back is one of the best films of the year, running neck and neck with The Rule of Ginny Penn, and also the best A24 release in a few years. How does it compare with the Philippus' previous effort, Talk to Me? Talk to Me is a bit more consistent, even if its climactic last 10 minutes have a few hiccups.
But Bring Her Back is a more emotionally complex monster, even if it doesn't quite cross the finish line for every one of its characters. So I'm not going to necessarily rate one movie over the other. They do different things. You can always tell that they come from the same creators, though. That's shiningly obvious. I was told by many of my fellow horror fans that this is a film about grief, so that already put it right in my wheelhouse without ever having seen a single frame of it. Movies like Relic and The Dark and the Wicked really spoke to me in that vein, so I had good reason to believe this would have a leg up. Horror is best when it connects, and we've all experienced at least some loss, so some good, new-fashioned grief porn is always a safer bet in my book. But here's the thing, while it is about grief, it has another level of text that I found more urgent and compelling. It's a film about lies. The first words we see on screen are, "This is not a cult." The key question from then on is whether that line of text is true or not. If it is true, then this is a movie purely about mental illness brought on by overwhelming grief. If it's a lie and the satanic rituals we see are real, then we're watching a movie about spiritual eugenics. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine believing that one person's spiritual being is intrinsically more valuable than another. If you could swap out one being's existence for another, would it be justifiable? Of course, we're not talking about vanquishing Ted Bundy and replacing him with Martin Luther King Jr. No, these are two innocent girls. Can you justify choosing one over the other? A sort of profane Sophie's choice. It's pretty obvious who a mother would choose, though, isn't it? Our point of view character here is Andy, a kid with baggage and an inability to connect with his own past. His sister Piper is mostly blind, which heightens the surface plot drama when she's in jeopardy, but does far more work on the second and third tier textual levels. Since she can only see basic shapes and shades, she must rely largely on what she's told. In an early scene, both her brother and new foster mother lie to her about what Ollie, the third kid in the household, looks like. Thing is, they both say basically the same thing, but for very different reasons. Andy lies to protect Piper. Laura, the foster mom, lies to deceive. Turns out that neither is particularly great. Much later, Andy attempts to confess all to Piper in a voicemail. At that moment, at least briefly, he goes from Hamlet level in action territory into becoming a protagonist. Ollie, the other kid, is both pure innocence and an absolute monster. It really depends on whose lies you're buying into. The film's resolution does answer the question, by the way, and for once I think it's better that way. I usually adore ambiguity, but here it's equally tragic and hopeful, so it matches the dual tones of the film perfectly. Oh, and he's mute, or at least mostly mute. He can't lie. But he also can't give his own first-hand testimony to help us navigate the film either. And you will need to navigate Bring Her Back in your head as you watch. It's in no way a passive watch. If you hate those movies people call elevated horror, you'll probably be frustrated with this one. Also, although there's some dry humor sprinkled in, it's subtle and character drawn, so there's really not much relief from the heaviness of the proceedings. If you like Motley Crue more than Slayer or Less Than Jake more than the Dead Kennedys, you may be on thin ice here. I'm not going to try to decode all the imagery, themes, and ideas here. For starters, it was my first watch, and second, there's no way a video this brief is going to do any of it justice. But rest assured, there's plenty to highlight and underline here. Lots of notes for the margins. If that's the sort of thing you dig, you'll appreciate this one. If you want Halloween Ends, well, you can have my slice of that pie. My rating for Bring Her Back, at least for the moment, is a strong A-. With just a few tweaks, mostly in its first act, this one could have bumped up to a straight A. And hell, it may on second or third viewing, but for now, that's where I'm sitting with it.